Hey everyone, this is Schleicher from Gaming Trend and Tabletop Throwdown, and I'm here with Mike Selinker and Keith Richmond, and I'm here to talk about two of their upcoming games that they have. The first one that we have is Apocrypha, the adventure card game, which was on Kickstarter last year and successfully kickstarted very well, and they finally have a copy of it here, and so we're getting a very early look at the finished product.
Right. Quite literally, this is the first time anyone other than like us has seen this actual game. This showed up on Monday. We threw it into the Pelican case, brought it out, and opened it up for the first time here. So you have the very first, you people right now getting the very first look at this game.
Very cool. So, and when we take a look at it, it definitely looks a lot like the Pathfinder adventure card game, other than maybe the setting, but there's got to be a lot of differences between the two too.
There are. I mean, I think of it as like Pathfinder and Apocrypha are siblings, but one of them got like kicked out of the car on the way to the hospital, way back from the hospital, and grew up back behind the Piggly Wiggly, right? Because this, I mean, Pathfinder is bright and hopeful and you know, gives you complete control of the game, and you advance to become basically godlike characters. And well, this one's a little bit.
No, this one's a lot more about just struggling to survive.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple murder boards.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So
just a tad bleaker.
It's a little bit. But the thing is, it's set on the edge of the apocalypse, but importantly, the apocalypse has not happened. Like, you can still stop it. You can still throw all sorts of roadblocks in the way of the world ending, and you might succeed at that. Like, the point being that you don't represent, like in some survival horror game, like, oh god, I just gotta find a gas can and a battery to make it through the rest of this game. No, forget that. You're superheroes, right? You are capable of throwing up all sorts of roadblocks to the big bad monsters that want to destroy the world. It's just, you have one slight problem. You've forgotten everything about who you are. And so you have to rebuild your brain, to rebuild all your superpowers by re-triggering all your memories. And at the end of that process, then you will be, you know, quite powerful, throw a car across the room kind of character, but you don't start out that way. It's very much a localized game in that it takes place in the United States and Canada and Mexico, and everything happens right now. The game literally takes place on the day you are playing it, which allows us to do all sorts of crazy things, like Keith just showed you the map of the North America there, which is a little bit different, a little bit different. So it allows us to do some crazy things, like we can modify your game based on what day it is. So if it's Christmas and you're playing the mission Christmas in Candlepoint, Christmas is going to be a little different this year, right? And you know, we can change if it's Halloween, then the monsters might be more powerful. If it's the first day of school, then something might occur differently. You know, all those things. We're going to be able to track this game in real time and give people a chance to essentially play an alternate version of their lives. Now, I mean, you know, with monsters and superpowers.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be just a little different than their real life.
I mean, but the point of the game, when you think about it, right, is that you're a saint, and that means that you can see all the monsters in the world where nobody else can. So we could be playing Apocrypha right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we just not aware enough that to see all the monsters that are surrounding us.
I think I'd like to remember how to use my superpowers.
Yeah.
Can you make that happen?
I am but a humble game designer, sir. There's very little I can do. But yeah, we really wanted to make this a topical game, so there's thousands of references in the game to modern life. Everything is something. Every card is about something that actually exists or is, you know, in fiction or something like that. Everything feels like it's in a real place. On the table here, if you can see, these red cards are all from the Skinwalker Set. There's a bunch of different sets in the game. Skinwalker Set takes place in Chicago, and all of the lycanthropes in the game are street gang members. They're all wearing different colors of the thing that they turn into, right? So, you know, we wanted to make it feel like you're really right there on the mean streets of Chicago, which is the place I'm from. But we also go into the high-tech area of Seattle and San Francisco for golems, and down into Mexico for serpents to reawaken a dragon from a Mesoamerican pyramid. Keith's been working on the Physicians chapter, which is on the eastern seaboard.
Turns out the CDC is not entirely helpful. Sometimes, often.
And the CDC is complicated.
You have to study the diseases to understand them. Sometimes you have to spread diseases to really understand how they work. It's
Right.
Things.
Sure, that sounds totally wholesome. So, yeah. So basically, wherever you are watching this, we probably ruined your town.
Except Vegas. Vegas pretty good, right?
Vegas came out great.
Yeah.
Vegas turned out really good. Yeah. Okay. So, should we talk about
how do you go about this? How does the game actually play?
Well, there's no canonical way to start, play, or end a game of Apocrypha, which is a wonderful answer, right? But the game is actually built out of these cards, which are called structures. And they basically tell you all the things you need to do to start the game and play it and win it, right? Okay. So once you know how to play, the only things that really modify that behavior are the structures, and then the mission card will tell you special things about what's happening in that mission. When you play a mission, your goal is defined by the structure card. So it might say something like, gather all the helpless children that are being indoctrinated into the gang by the were-snake Hannah, right?
Yeah.
So
that's the thing that happens.
That's the thing that happens. So to do that, first you're going to have to get all those children to come out of these decks of cards that you'll sort of seed them into. You'll get them into your hand. Some of them you won't get, and then they'll turn on Hannah's side. Then you'll have to defeat Hannah. And you'll pick the game up. You'll deal out another deck of cards. You'll fight Hannah in that deck of cards. And the ones you got will help you, and the ones you didn't get won't help you, right? They'll be on Hannah's side. So that's one method of the dozens of ways to play the game. What we wanted to make is a very rich game that could last forever. So it's got, between all the boxes and the promo cards, 99 missions that you can play. Each of them is different in some way. There's no sort of default mission state.
Not at all.
We've discovered all sorts of nooks and crannies in this game in which we can change the direction that people play. There's some commonalities to Pathfinder in some sense, in that you can probably find the canonical version of Pathfinder in here on some of the missions, right? Like, and sometimes
there's a couple of Corner the Villain.
Yeah, there's a few Corner the Villains that the sort of the base game of Pathfinder. But yeah, we really stretched. We went a lot of places that we couldn't really go with Pathfinder.
Very cool. And so you still play cards and have equipment and
the commonalities between Pathfinder and Apocrypha are that there is a mission that you have to play, or an adventure, right? And it tells you what to do on it. There's you get a character called a saint. You'll get a deck of cards. If you run out of that deck of cards, something really bad will happen to you. It turns out that death in this game is very different than it is in Pathfinder.
It is indeed.
But then You'll modify that deck some based on what it is you find in there, and you'll also modify your character, but in a very, very different way than you do in Pathfinder. So in Pathfinder, you check a bunch of check boxes and move your way up to a high-level state by gaining a roll card and stuff like that. Here, what you do is you get a card. So here's a Saint card. This is Gabriela Vargas. She's a 1%er, a bad motorcycle person. She will start out with just this character card, and it'll tell her what dice she rolls, how many cards she gets, some special skills and powers she has, and that's it. That's how this character starts. It does nothing else. It just sort of stays nice and flatline. That's what it does until it starts picking up some memories. So this card is a fragment. The fragments get built into a halo around the character. So you can have up to 8 of them. This suddenly gives her a whole lot of new interesting powers. So for example, she can keep an extra body gift in this one, but the downside of this is she gets a little bit of lycanthropy. A little bit. She becomes a little bit more susceptible to some of the things that happen. Another one here might give her the ability to sacrifice a type of card to discard some cards and upper rage dice, but also get some more lunacy. Another one might suddenly allow her to flip some matching dice. You know, all those kinds of things, right? So she gets all these. She'll become a very different character as she builds the powers around in her halo. And the characters start to feel very different from each other from right out of the gate. So, 2 characters here, Gabriela and Ruby Doomsday. She's a 13-year-old roller girl from Chicago. She's going to start out doing different things and will want different memories than the player who's playing Gabriela. So, at the end of a game that you're successful at, you'll essentially get to draft a bunch of memories for your brain. And if you take a new one in, then that's going to help define your character. There's also, this game is a lot more cooperative than the Pathfinder adventure card game in terms of how you help each other. You'll notice that the characters have symbols of the 4 virtues, body, mind, rage, and soul, around the outside in different positions, because table position is a critical thing in this game. You can always help people to your left and right in different ways. People at your nexus, these places that you investigate, but it really matters how you're positioned next to each other, what you do to line yourself up correctly with the other players, and just play a good game. We only use 6-sided dice in this game.
So that'll be a little more simplified then.
Well, so these are actually 5 different kinds of dice.
They are.
So these are not just 26-sided dice. They're 4 each of 5 different kinds of dice. These are rage dice, soul dice, body dice, mind dice, and bonus dice. And they all function differently. But they all roll 6 numbers. So
they do indeed.
That's their job, right?
And there may be a couple of ways to manipulate the dice in the game.
Yeah.
Here and there,
right? So which dice you use is important, which cards you use is important, who you're playing is important, where you're going is important, what type of game you're playing is important, what structure modifications a game makes, what fragments you have. All those things make for a very different play experience every time.
Cool. And this is like your first production copy?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Real honest to goodness, for only one that exists in the United States.
So when can we actually expect to see it out?
It'll be out at Gen Con. We'll have copies in-house to send out to our beloved Kickstarter backers right around the end of July.
Okay.
We'll see how far we're hoping to get through as much of that ship out as we can before Gen Con. Obviously, they're not willing to move Gen Con for us. but we're gonna get them all out as quickly as we can. This is the World box. It is the first of the 3 sets of the game. The next 2, this is the World. The next one's the Flesh, and the one after that's the Devil. The Flesh will be out later this year, and the Devil sometime the year after that.
And how many players does this accommodate?
There's 2 different ways to play the game. The first is you can play against the game in a solo game all the way up to a 6-player game, right? And then there's, as a full-on role-playing game, one player takes the role of the game master. You play the game very similar, but that person decides what happens and where you go and all that kind of stuff, manipulates the environment. So you can play with up to 7 people at the table.
Oh wow, that's a lot of people at one time.
We've played some 7-player games. They're super fun. They ping pong all over the place. The guide, the person who's running it, has the ability to trigger an encounter for anybody at any time. So the guide just continually goes, you need to make a body check, boom, right, and it just guns.
Cool. And how long does a typical game play?
The against the card game, it's usually between 45 minutes and an hour and a half.
Okay.
Again, when a role-playing game, we've had games go on for 4 or 5 hours.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun. You can basically make it whatever you want.
Cool. And how much is this going to retail for?
I believe this is 75. I'm not 100% sure.
75 is what I remember.
Yeah, I believe the base set's 75. Internet, don't quote me on that because I'm not looking at my cheat sheet at the moment. The expansions, I believe, are 40. And they contain a lot more story, a lot more cards, a lot more character pawns, so that's how the game is.
Great. Well, thank you very much for showing this to me.
You're most welcome. Thank you guys. I'm glad I hope you enjoyed the first ever look at Apocrypha, the adventure card game.
Hey everyone, this is Keith Schleicher from Gaming Trend and Tabletop Throwdown, and I'm here with Mike Selinker and Paul Peterson, and we are going to talk about a game that was funded on Kickstarter and is related to Monty Cook's RPGs. This is The Ninth World. It's a deck building game, and it's skill building game. Kind of.
We'll explain that.
And it's in the world of Numenera. So why did you decide to set this in the world of Numenera?
It was Numenera from the get-go, basically.
Well, we didn't tell them that.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was more just like it was the world we wanted to write in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, it was like Monty and I have known each other for, 20 years, something like that. And he's just a super genius.
Right.
And he's surrounded himself with the best writers, Sean Germain, Sean Reynolds, Bruce Cordell, just a power hitter group of people. And then he gets, Sarah Robinson, Bear White, all those people to make the game look gorgeous, right? And so anytime you walk into an RPG room and you see people playing Numenera, they're just smiling.
Right.
Right? Like they're not.
When people walk past and look down and see the art and what's going on, they stop and they're like, "What's going on there?"
Because it's so different from everything else you really see. It's not high fantasy. It's not sci-fi. It's something very unique.
In the middle there. Yeah.
Right.
And so we want some of that.
Right.
Paul, you and Bo, our co-designer, had worked on it for a little while. Why don't you talk about your development of it?
It was Bo and I. Bo actually originally came up with this idea of the one hand that gets better.
You should probably explain what a skill building game is.
Well, okay, yeah, it's a skill building game, which means that what you have is, it's like a deck building game if you didn't really have a deck, you just had a hand of cards. And every round, your hand of cards gets better, or you can make your hand of cards get better. Since this is a complex game, you can always choose to sacrifice making something better in exchange for short-term gains, and that's often useful. But so we just started playing around with this idea of you have the 5 skills, and each one gets better over time, and that allows you to focus on what you want to do, whether you want to be combat or whether you want to be charm, essentially. Yeah, it was just really fun to play in that design space where it's, you know, what are you doing? Well, we just have 5 cards. That's it. What are we doing from there? Okay, now we figure out what to do in that box, right?
So yeah, Bo and Paul got that game to the point where it was a super fun sort of dynamic exercise.
Right. Yes.
How far
Yes.
could we? How
It was
far,
a really good engine we
yeah,
had there.
that's right.
Yeah.
So it's like, how far can we go to outthink each other and,
Right.
and get that extra point and stuff like that,
Right.
and all that. And I'm sitting there watching them play it and going, yeah, but what if it was a Numenera game?
Yeah.
And they were like, no, but it is. I'm like, no.
No, it's not really.
It's not, actually.
It says Numenera, but it's not.
Yeah. And so I came in with the meat hook and sort of did the thing I do, which is add like dynamic mission patterns and powers to everything, and
Right.
and Paul and Bo embraced that approach, came up with characters that were vastly different from each other.
Yep.
Then later we were playing it and we sort of said, I think this would actually be a co-op game too. So we went to Mexican food and made it one.
That's right. Over the course of dinner, we were like, well, what if we? No, it could work if we did this, and if we did this, and what if we did this? Yeah.
So now it functions in 2 modes, competitive and cooperative.
Right.
And so we made it look really good. That was another step that was important.
That was very important.
We commissioned many pieces of art in this world, and Monty and Bear were just like, holy cow, you guys are making some amazing stuff. Because this guy, right? Suddenly you can just make little robot automaton characters, or this guy who's actually 2 characters. He's the big sort of brutish guy plus a starfish on his back.
Yep.
Right? Because that's a thing.
Sure.
Right?
Numenera.
Yeah, that's a thing that can happen a billion years in the future. So we just sort of applied that Lone Shark touch that has affected games like the Trail at House on the Hill and the Pathfinder adventure card game and stuff like that, and it came out real good. I mean, I love all of our games, but I think this is the one that if somebody just walks into the Lone Shark office and says, what do you guys do?
Right.
Right? I'm just like, crack, let's go to work. And 30 minutes later, they've played the game, and they're super, they want to play it again.
Right.
So how does the game play? I mean, yes, you have the 5 hands, but do you have objective? There are 5 cards in your hand, but you have objectives, or
yes. We don't have it laid out here exactly, but so the game is played either a short game that goes to 5 rounds, and you go 1 round, 2 round, 3 round, 4 rounds, or all the way back to 9 rounds, right? But in each round, there's 5 phases, which actually correspond to the 5 skills. And in the scout phase, you will reveal more cards onto the table. In the tinker phase, you will go after the green cards. In the charm phase, you will go after the yellow cards. In the red phase, you will go after the red cards. And then in the focus phase is where you take everything that you didn't spend going after cards on the table and use them to make your hand better for next time and invest in the future, basically. But
I realized I had not actually put out any of the cards that you might
actually
see in the game.
Right. So there's a town of there's 2 areas. There's the town and the wilderness, and the town gets refreshed every turn. So you'll go after that, and you know it'll be there. But there's the higher risk and reward cards are out in the wilderness, and that's what you do in the scout phase, is you reveal some of those. And then in a particular phase, each of us decides secretly how much of this we're willing to risk, and that's what these bid shields are for. And I decide how much I'm going to risk, and I put it under here, and you decide how much you're going to risk and put it under yours, and then we reveal that in fact I risked 2 of my cards, and you risked 0, 1, 2, however many you decided to risk. And then we use that to buy the things that are out there. So if this was in the tinker phase and we were going after green cards, I would have 2 points to spend. I would have 1 for my tinker card and 1 for my scout card.
Can't buy this.
Can't buy that one. That would cost 8.
Yeah, but look here, over here,
that would cost 3.
Yep. So, look, there's one right here. You can totally get this.
That's a 3. Anyways.
Yep.
you could so I have my 3 points out here.
Yeah, 3 points.
And I could, and now what happens is we decide what order we go in, and it's based on how much you spent. So I spent 3, so I beat everybody who spent two or less. And then I would get to go first if he spent 2 or less, and I would buy this. And now it's not there when it's his turn. So he has his 2 points out there, and he has nothing to buy. So you get to convert those into victory points. That's fine, but...
Yeah, so each turn plays a little bit different in that each of the types of things that you can get do different things. The ciphers will give you special bonus superpowers later on in the game. The creatures will try to harm you and often, but often have good upsides when you meet them. They might give you extra skills and stuff like that. The quests, these yellow cards, send you out to do other things. So you're like, okay, if I do this, then if I claim, if I do this one here, hunt to have humans, if I claim 2 creatures, then I'll get the extra bonus points for that. And so you might build sort of a quest stacking plan over the course of the game. And then the last thing you do is, if you have any points left over, or if you've been thinking about this in advance, you would maybe use focus cards to increase one of the cards, 5 cards in your hand, so that if I so if Paul wanted to make Tinker 2,
Right, so at the end I would have, I have 2 points left over. I can increase a 1 to a 2 for 2 points. So I would swap out my Tinker 1 for a Tinker 2. And now in the next round, when we're bidding in the Tinker phase, and I bid these 3 cards, it's actually worth 2 Tinker points, 3 points, 4 points.
Right, because the Scout only counts.
Because the Scout only, this is not the Scout's phase, so it just counts for 1.
Yeah, so so you do that. Very often there are powers that affect the round itself. So like this one makes creatures cost less, and this one might give people wounds, which are bad. They cover up your superpowers.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of powers in the game too.
Each character has its own special ability.
Right, but you can always say, oh, I don't want that. I'm going to take this one instead. I'm going to make this he's going to move like the wind. So now he has that power.
Right, instead.
Yeah.
You do that at the start of the game.
So, so there's a lot of variation to what happens. The game comes with 9 regions. The 9 regions.
This is one region.
Yep. Sorry, yeah, good point. Sorry, my apologies. Each of these is a region card, but 45 of these, so 9 different sort of adventures that you can go on. Right. And then we have, for our Kickstarter backers, we have this bonus pack of 11 different other adventures that you could go on that hopefully will, over time, make their way into expansions that we put out, assuming people out there really like it, which we hope they will. Yeah. So what you're looking at now is a sort of rough late stage prototype.
Right.
I think that's important to say because the game isn't
entirely
entirely made out of hand-cut paper chips and stuff like that.
Actually printed on cards and such.
Yeah. But the game's about I think 2 weeks away from going to the printer. That's our current plan. You're missing some elements here. There's a fold-out board that you track your score on. There's a few other things that you can't see at the moment because they're not quite done.
Right.
But yeah, it's coming along really good, and it'll be out later this year.
Cool. And how many players does this handle?
5 players can play it, from 1 to 5. That is, you can play a solo mode all the way up to 5 players in either co-op or competitive. Those 2 modes play very differently. In the competitive mode, you're just trying to get the most points.
Right.
You're trying to outfox the other players, stuff like that. In the co-op mode, though, there's this sort of threshold that you have to beat, and I don't think I've seen this before. Every single character has to meet that threshold, or all of you lose.
Right.
And so
you're helping each other. You're like, well, I'll help you kill that creature, but you don't get the victory points for it because we need to get you up.
Yeah. So 5-player game, and we'll see where it goes from here. We're excited about the possibilities of expanding it. We have a whole line of expansions that we want to make. They all have names that begin with "into the," in case Numenera fans are watching.
Yeah.
So we want to go into the beyond and into the deep and into the night and into the outside. Like, we'd love to do all that if people will let us.
Cool. And how long does it take to play about?
The short version is about 30 minutes.
Yeah, if you only play the 5 rounds.
Yeah.
If you
So-
play the full 9, it goes up to like 45 to an hour,
45 to an
depending
hour.
on the obviously scales with players a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
But one of the things is that there is that because you're doing secret bidding, that's all simultaneous, and then you just have, and you usually have a plan. So the turns don't take that long. A lot of simultaneous happens, and then everybody makes their choices, but they make their choices based on I have 3 points to spend. What's out there for me to buy? So it's pretty quick.
Yep. And I mean, we're just happy to see it come to life. We've been working on this for a while.
Yes.
And Monty Cook and his colleagues, Charles Ryan and Sean and Bear and all those guys, have been so supportive all the way through. They've been like this. I've heard them say things like, this really feels like playing Numenera, which
Right.
I mean is a great compliment, obviously.
Especially from them. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we think it's going to be good. We'll have it out soon, and hopefully people can judge for themselves.
Great. Well, thank you very much for showing this to me and taking the time out in your busy schedule for this.
Happy to do so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bye, Internet.